cover and flash. This is, if you see that is the blue area. So we have the grey water system. The wash is recovered from there, and we use it as for flashing. And the bottom sketch kind of shows you what this is. When you wash, you flush, and we only flush twice a day. Every flushing routine is 60 liters. So that way we are saving water. But not only saving water, we are using the grey water that is recovered in the system. And this heads into a biodigester, which has an advantage of giving gas and slurry on top of ensuring that the groundwater is not contaminated. Now, this slide also, again, we provided biodigesters as a solution for this recent, the school we've just finished for the Cotton Foundation in Namabale and Bunjako, and Busibo, sorry. And the reason I shared this photo is initially we were using brick. We use brick where we have access to, in this case, most of the schools we use Butende brick, and it makes sense to use the same material while we are building our biodigesters. However, we faced a challenge when we went to build in Bidibidi, because we do not have access to brick. And that's where we relied on the ferrous cement system, the image that I show you there. The ferrous cement system, which is at the bottom. Basically, you form the earth and put a layer of expanded mesh and plaster it. And once it sets, you then excavate to form the shape. We found this is quite efficient and affordable. The last part, the second last part, is talking about the hybrid. Paul has already talked about the energy efficient stove, so I won't go into it. But on the left, we show our gas scope, where when we get the gas from the biodigester, we have it supplementing the firewood stoves. We also need to acknowledge that biogas toilets or biogas systems cannot provide 100% cooking gas. So that's why we have a hybrid system where the gas is available, it can be used. Where it's not, we use the firewood. Lastly, I'm going to show you, that's the photo of a typical site that the school, this must be Busibo, I think. This just shows you again, we are blessed to have a site that has a slope. So those very small, tiny labels reflect the toilets. And we have a drainage line coming all the way to the right where the biodigesters are. And then on the left of this picture, we still also have some toilets which have a biodigester toilet right at the bottom. And the placement of the biodigester is next to the kitchen for usage. I would say that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big clap for Paul and Alan. Now we'll be going to the Q&A, which is going to be done jointly. So you all need to put up your hand and show if you have a comment, a question, an observation, or anything in that spirit. Thank you. We request that you stand up, you tell us your name, and then you direct your question either to Alan or Paul. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donald. A question for, Alan, sorry. How effective is human waste in your biodigesters? Have you been able to substantiate how effective they are or they have been?
Thank you. We'll take about 3, then responses come.
Okay. Hello, my name is Esther. My question is in line with his, a bit different, but regarding the biodigester toilets, we've had situations where they are not acceptable because of mindsets, the students thinking maybe the energy from there is not clean. But we've also had situations in Enabel where we've now resorted to using the animal waste. And now when you go back to the institutes, what you thought animals were available at the time of design, now they're not there anymore, so the systems are also not functional. So how do you balance that together with the mindset change and how to make it more usable and friendly for the school and
Thank you. Issues of behavior change.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Raymond Amsoso, and I have a question in line with rainwater harvesting. I see a picture of a plastic tank. I've conducted a couple of baseline surveys in remote schools, and I've observed that these plastic tanks usually get damaged and abandoned. So I would like to know the sustainability of these plastic tanks and how you're managing that. Do you have alternatives? And then the other issues on maintenance and cleanliness of these tanks. You know, rainwater usually gets contaminated in the roof. So how frequent do these systems get cleaned? Or what programs are you putting in place to manage these issues?
Thank you. Rainwater system. There's interest. Okay, we go for 5. Then
Thank you. I've seen you have water tanks that you have presented plastic order with ISSP blocks. Have you done a study to see how, when it is more feasible to build them with ISSP, stabilized solid blocks, when it's better with plastic, which are the advantages of the one and the others? Thank you.
last question, and then response. The previous question was from Matthias Mugana. Did say his name.
Okay, my name is Abhay Shah. I think this question applies to both of you, where you have been using technologies that displace some firewood. In your case, in the cooking, in the jacketed system, in your case, the biogas. Have you got some data on what sort of percentage or how many tons per month firewood has been displaced?
Thank you very much. So it's time to respond to that set of the source of questions. Probably then we'll have another round. Paul or Alan? Who shoots first? We need a middle ground.
I will respond to Donald, which is how effective is human waste in biodigester? We need to understand that when we are recommending biodigester, it's mainly about human waste management. So the slurry that comes from the biodigester, the gas is a bonus. For places, I could talk about a school that we built. The first school was built in Charlotte here, and recently with the COVID, the school was planned for 500 children, and with COVID, the school numbers are probably shot up to 850. But we can say for certain, through our system of maintenance partners that we have, that even with that surge, the school treatment system did not fail, it did not collapse. And so, to speak on that, human waste is not ideal for gas production, and it needs to be supplemented. I hope I have answered that question. On the second one, again, is biogas acceptability and mindset. Now, it is really similar to Donald's. Again, for the solution we provide in these schools, it is mainly for waste management, and biogas is a bonus. And we've tried with Cotton Foundation. There was a program where they were involving the children, the communities to provide dung to supplement the biogas production, because they were also aware that the human waste is not adequate to produce gas. Now, where the gas is available, we've never had a challenge with people using this gas to cook, because it greatly reduces their cost on a monthly basis. Now, taking you back to where local works does not reinvent the wheel. Biogas digesters from KCCA, which has a huge outlay of biogas digesters in Kampala, and the study was done with KCCA school in Kansanga. At the time, the head teacher supplemented the wood, that the firewood, with a truck of dung in a term, and that cut his cost by 50%. I would, by 50%, I never got to know exactly how much he was spending before, but at least he acknowledged that the biogas system supplemented with dung had cut his fuel costs by 50%.
Thank you very much. I think the first one is from Raymond. I think he mentioned that plastic tanks get damaged, and I think maybe that ties on with another one about comparing the ISSB tanks and the plastic tanks, and whether a study has been done. Yes, it's true that plastic tanks have some vulnerabilities because they can easily be pierced, and that's a challenge that is there in many schools. So they do have a tendency, you will see a picture of a tank within a tank. There's a plastic tank, and around it there's a brick wall, just to keep that safe. That vulnerability. On terms of the study, we haven't actually done a study, but I think for me, one of the things that is obvious is in terms of capacity. That with plastic tanks, I think the biggest that we have are maybe about 16,000 liters. I think they used to make larger ones, but they had a bit of problems in the field. And so I think they keep it at about 16,000 as the largest available. And I think our approach to rainwater harvesting seems to be more of token. Let's get some water and tick off that box. So we do a 10,000 liter tank and tick that off for a school of maybe 500. And if it's the only source, obviously, it's not sufficient, and they'll not have any water through the dry months. But I think part of the maintenance aspects in the slides that I showed is there's a smaller tank. So this smaller tank could be, especially for that underground, could be about 5,000 liters, depending on the size of the catchment, the roof catchment that you have. And so the maintenance, this is the one with a kind of a sand filter and the stones. So that maintenance is limited to that smaller tank. So that's the one that gets dirty, and it's the one that you need to clean out from time to time. So that's the maintenance aspect, especially for the underground tanks. I think it's particularly difficult if you do not have manual access to clean a tank. Then there was a question on wood fuel, which is a very valid question. The fact that it contributes to carbon emissions. But by and large, I think more than 90% of the people in Uganda use some form of wood fuel for cooking, and unfortunately. but still there is quite a low adoption of improved cooking systems. If you look at the household level, you have the 3-stone stove, which is basically a lot of waste. So there are provisions for the households, and then we have thought about provisions for institutions. And what we are looking at with the hybrid is we're actually cutting the wood fuel use by about 70%. We're just doing that. And but I think there's data, but I think a lot of the data that I have, I think a recent study is more connected to refugee settlements rather than a countrywide study. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Just a moment. So if the questions have been answered, we'll take a few more. It's fine. So there's one here, and the second round starts.
Good afternoon. Victor from DTW, Development Technology Workshop, on the rainwater harvesting plastic tanks. I see this one, I can share. In Fort Portal, we got a research that 90% of the tanks supplied by UNICEF, 90% were damaged, as he said. So what we did, we constructed ours, 14 underground water tanks are still there and functioning. So the alternative, what we're asking, if you go for underground water tanks, they are manageable and less damaged by the neighbors and the peoples. Thank you.
So, in a way, that was an advert, not a question. Thank you.
I wanted just to answer.
Okay, question here.
Good afternoon, Lionel Kativa. My question is about the plastic tiles, the roofing tiles, with sand. In terms of, one, their manufacture, the costs of the energy, and also their impact on the environment because of the process.
Thank you. Any other question? I think we take those for now.
Hi, I'm Henrietta. So my question is regarding the green solutions. How do you, for example, you give them to mostly rural areas. I would assume they don't have a lot of resources or money. So how do you allocate the solutions in regards to the cost of those solutions as well? Thank you.
Is the question clear? Hope.
Thank you very much. My name is Marisha Batia from HIT Uganda. We've been working with several schools where we are building using interlocking blocks, and we also do sanitation as well as rainwater harvesting using the interlocking blocks. But then one of the key questions that come up in the area of sanitation is managing the smell from the pits. And it looks like the vent pipe in itself is not sufficient. So I wondered if anyone had a better solution in that case. But with respect to water, we have had success with the rainwater harvesting tanks having an offset pipe and they being above the ground. Thank you.
Marisha, just wanted to check are those drainable?
Line beats, drainer.
afternoon, everyone. I'm called Xavier Otala. I'm a student. I wanted to know, Mr. Alan talked about the compost. There's this technology that came up, the eco-sand systems, that I feel relates more to what you said, and it has not yet been embraced by the people. Yet it would be advisable for probably places like informal settlements. I want to give an example wise, which has the issue of water logging and that, but would also render it non-functional at a point. How do we make people embrace and use this technology? I feel it would also work at a given point.
Thank you. I think we take those.
I know I'm going to let my colleague answer the question about plastic tiles. Henrietta, you asked the question about the solutions we are providing are for rural areas and how do we allocate money, costs, in regards to cost. I would say it is exactly why we provide innovative solutions to rural areas is because there is no money. Start with water. There is no access to water, so we have to find a creative way to still provide wash for the children, to still provide a decent waste management system, a decent toilet for a disabled person in the rural area. And if we rely on the systems that are present, which is mainly reliant on water, those schools will have a challenge maintaining those systems. Then the second question was about EcoSan toilets, and I think Lutalo. And
Otala. Yes. Oh, Otala.
Otala. And I shared a slide earlier on where I showed the pit latrines, the lined and unlined. I also shared the compost. I said my favorite would be the compost. However, the hindrance is the perceptions, and we cannot force people to change perceptions because while we build these buildings, we are there maybe for 12 months, and in those 12 months you can't force change. So when you leave, you almost want them to run. So you have to give them a system that they can adapt easily, maintain, and own. And probably that's why most of them failed, because they did not own them. I hope I answered this.
Thank you. There was a question of the plastic roofing tiles. And yeah, I think the cost, I don't recall, I think it's about 30,000 per square meter in terms of the cost. The thinking around the innovation is really, usually when plastic is recycled, it's downcycled, so it's used for something that it is really at a lower level than its previous use. So the concept here is that by having it on the roof, then one of the problems that we have is around a lot of plastic waste clogging drainage channels, and even the practical, like for homes, like how the plastic waste that we generate. In many cases, people will just do open burning if they have that, or they just dump it somewhere. So here you have a provision where it's can be collected from those people who have that problem and and then used over the long term in the building. So the plastic is really used as a binder and what's with cement. So one of the things is it's quite light, so it's about half the weight of normal concrete tiles. And so that the costs are also comparable. And then it is less prone to damage. It's something that you can actually drop and it doesn't break or crack. So that's one of the things that it has. Yeah, Mauricio, thanks for sharing your experience with interlocking stabilized soil blocks. The issue around the pit smelling, I think for me, I think we totally got it wrong. I think maybe the whole education sector and people who are doing these kinds of toilets, I've seen them at offices and refugee settlements, and after even a month of use, no one wants to use the toilet because it's really a tank that you have, and that tank has a drop hole that is open, and you have urine going into that, and urine is a very big contributor to having that smell. So my thinking is it's just very bad design that we need to drop. I think the improvements that we have seen around maybe what GIZ has done or what other players in the water and sanitation sector have done is with a power flush, which can also be drained, is you do have that U-bend, so you have the smell really not coming up into the toilet stands. But then the other innovation is the saddle pans. Saddle pans are plastic squat pans that have a mechanism, a flap at the bottom that allows it's like a cover that you have, and you use very little water with that, maybe about half a liter to 2 liters, and it leaves a thin film which effectively acts as a water seal to the smell that would come up. So I think the issue is not the VIP latrines, because if it's a VIP latrine and it's not sealed at the bottom, you do not have that problem as much as if it is really a tank, effectively a tank with an open hole to let the smells come out. So I just think it's a poor design, and unfortunately it's what everyone is doing and promoting for schools, especially in rural areas.
Henrietta, could I add that in our presentation we solved that problem. Ours is a series of pipes. You flush once a day or twice a day, and therefore you do not have that waste matter decomposing and bringing back the smell. They don't smell, and it's always pushed to either a tank or a digester, whatever form of storage that you want, but it's never below the pan.
Done with the questions? Thank you very much, Paul and Alan. Just pivot to the issue of the VIP that Mauricio brought. Indeed, it's a disturbing thing in terms of fighting the smell and what could be the solutions. There are some experiments, I wouldn't call them research, experiments that were found to work. Especially if you are able to make sure that your tank is full sealed, that does not leak, using maybe the approach that you provided. So all you need the overflow pipe or inspection chamber on the exterior side, and on the squat pit, you insert the pipe and make sure the tank is filled and the pipe is below the water line by some mathematics, the supposed that we follow. Now, the problem would be when somebody squats, they potentially have a rebound. So the height of the pipe must be carefully monitored during the construction. So the backflash doesn't go that high, but the drop just flashes below. And by that you achieve a perfect air seal of the squat position. If you are done somewhere following this disturbance of extreme smell. So I think, and many other ideas. But thank you very much. We conclude this session. As other members are joining us, we are going into the next session of panel discussion. A big clap to the team. Thank you very much. Coffee will come to the very end. I imagine that it's always good to create allergy, or the capacity to take up. So the coffee will come a little bit later. Join us to make sure that we move into the next session. And I'm trying to pretend to be the moderator, but sooner than later for sure, I'll have the moderator on the floor. Welcome back from the breakaway sessions. We have just concluded the breakaway sessions that included 501 innovations in teaching and learning, green solutions for schools, and the future of schools. Welcome back. Please take up your seats as we speed up to the next session. Welcome back. Those of us who are still outside, please.
All right, welcome back. Do we have everyone here? I highly doubt. So which other session is this? This is the one coming from the primary section, right? Future of schools. And then you joined us in the green solutions. Okay. So the very last session, and please note that we discovered your lunch is still sitting safe. So we didn't want to include other things on your lunch. So we want to make sure we can keep you a bit busy. So there is space for the coffee. So we will just hold a very short plenary session. I promise we won't keep you here too long. But it allows us to review what's happened today. And if you look at the program, it's the very final session for today. What we've just done is skipped the coffee and immediately jumped to our sixth session, the panel discussion. Experience of education in East Africa, and that's why you still have Dr. Kedres here, who will be available with us and all the key presenters this afternoon. So I'll invite Dr. Kedres to take one of the seats at the front. I'll also invite Architect Kenneth Semogerere, Doctor,
to do the same. We have Architect Matthias Piani, we have Engineer Emmanuel Senjiumva, we have Audrey Dwalega. If you could take the seats at the front. And as we dive into this session, I will request that we do that. So how we'll do this is I'm hoping by the time everyone is seated, we'll get all the other delegates back into the room. I think Emmanuel is the only one missing. Oh, Emmanuel's there. So who is missing? So we have, okay, all right. Frank
I think is looking over. Must be, that's why. All right, so do we have, yes, so that's the event code you could log into. If you have a question, even from your session that's just ended, feel free to post it in there. Then you can even be more specific by letting us know who you want to answer that question. It could also be a question that you've developed over the last few hours from an earlier conversation, whether it was from Prof. Benoit or from Kedres or any of the sessions really after. It could be Professor Peters. I see he's not here, but we could get someone to speak to that. So feel free to post your question or comment in the group and I will be able to pick it. All right, so Audrey is joining us, and as soon as she's seated, I'll ask Kedres to start us off. What's fortunate is Kedres has been here for the other two sessions that were in the room. So she was here for Green Solutions, but also earlier before lunch in the same room. So both sessions that happened here, she attended. So she kind of has a perspective of other areas beyond her own presentation. Audrey, take your time. Don't worry, you're just a few minutes late, but take your time. You know, you're just... no pressure, no pressure. All right, so Audrey, I was just letting them know we'll have a very short 3-minute intro from each of you based on your conversations from the different sessions. And then, just to check, we have the other mic? Just finding it, so I'm able to give Kedres that mic before, okay. Frank, do you have my other mic? Just need to make sure. Oh, it's on the podium, just check. Is it up? And then we will open it up for questions. I do have some questions. Kedres, Dr. Kedres will kick this conversation off. No, Dr. Kedres here. Not here. There. All right. Doctor, feel free to start. It's 3 minutes. I'll show you when you have 1 minute to go. So we have the 1 minute banner. You'll notice this man is waving the 1 minute banner every time you're about to. Or 2 minutes. Okay. Feel free. Doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mugisha. I'm so glad to have been here and to listen in to a lot of what we've shared today. As I said this morning, we are looking for a good school for now and tomorrow. And all that we've shared are contributions that make a good school. One of the key ones, and that's why I stayed back, was to listen in to the provisions for wash and sanitation. Children can study under the tree and they may learn, but if they have nowhere to go when nature demands them to go, or if where they are going is so insecure, especially for the girls. Girls have special seasons and they need special attention, so when some of these things are not happening, it doesn't matter how the rest of the infrastructure is like, they will still be disadvantaged. They will still not be settled in class to learn. They will still not be able to come back the next day to school. And all these contribute to inadequate learning. So, yes, it's a complex, but it's something exciting. I've listened in to many of these discussions, the importance of school leaders. It's so critical. You go to one community, the socio-economic environment is the same, but one school is full capacity, learning is happening, life is moving forward. You go to the very next school, it has less than 100 children, and when you ask, they tell you, well, people here are poor. So you realize it's not the poverty of the communities, it is the leadership, it's the management, it's the governance, which encourage the actual teaching learning process to be effective and for children to feel safe and secure and are able to learn. So children come to school because they want to learn. When learning is not happening, no matter what else is happening, they would definitely not be able to continue. So I'm really glad that we are tackling these things. And as I said this morning, as we think about model schools and so on, we should not only think about model schools, but we should think about various categories of model schools. Model schools for the urban, for children who enter their father's cars right within the compound and come out in the compound of the school. And then model schools for children who still walk 3-4 miles over the Kigali Hills and the Kawale Hills and the Kisoro Hills and the Wunbujo Hills and Karamoja and come to school. What kind of school would be model for them. So the need for community involvement, the need for parents sensitization is part and parcel of what would make a good school for our children today and also for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kendris. I'll ask Matthias, Architect Matthias, your experience from the conversations this morning and your key highlight. Key highlight.
So, well, at the beginning I was a bit worried because we started and we spoke cost. You know? And actually it's key. The cost is really something that is very important. Now, when you go through the whole morning sessions and then in the afternoon, we have seen that actually if cost is key, you have so many other elements that are key. And the question would be how to have all these different elements, all these different criteria that are around the school can be integrated at the end in a design. And in more than a design, the design is just, once again, just one small element on how the place in which this school will be built or will be extended or rehabilitated, how this place will be evolving with its own community that is living there, with its own ecosystem. And all the discussion we had this morning are actually showing that there is no one way. There are a lot of different ways, a lot of different criteria. And then when I look at the standards schools that we have in the countries in which we are, then I don't see this reflected there. And what I would like to see from this conference and this kind of discussion is, okay, how do we take these basic designs that are in our ministries and how to identify the step after that can be done with this design? How to integrate all the different criteria that have been discussed this morning and this afternoon, and we will continue tomorrow, just to say that one day was not enough. How do we integrate the first next step in these different designs that we have in our ministries? Because if I look at the design that are there, then we are, I don't remember which presentation had, yeah, it was Benoit, I think, 1,950s, the 50s schools, and then the 90s schools. Still, these designs are still based on the 50 schools. And all what we have discussed are not integrated there. And if we can do some model schools that will pop up somewhere, I don't remember, 8,000 needed schools, we won't be able to address all of them with this model that we are building, popping up around. So how these basic samples design that are in the ministry can be updated, and how to work together to do this update. And this I would like to, perhaps tomorrow, to see how to move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Emmanuel? Engineer, Emmanuel.
Thank you. I want first to introduce myself. I'm called Engineer Emmanuel Nzenyumva. I come from the Republic of Rwanda, and I work in the Ministry of Education as school construction specialist. Previously, I served as the Director of School Infrastructure Norms and Standards. So it's a big opportunity just to attend this conference discussing about the school design. As you are all aware, so the school is just the learning environment which should be conducive for our kids. So from the discussions we had in the sessions, in the morning sessions, I want just to talk on the community engagement and share with you the experience in our country, where we normally involve the community during the designs and construction of classrooms. So the community just involves from the design phase up to the construction and completion stage of classrooms. You have actually even used the community engagement during the design and construction of classrooms in the COVID pandemic, in which we actually constructed more than 20 classrooms by community engagement. So I think if the whole East Africa and the whole world involve the community, it will just have a good impact. That is what we actually have observed during that period where we built many classrooms in 1 year by involving the community. So normally the community can play a big role in the school design if we involve it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now time to Dr. Semogene. Quick takeaways for you?
Yes, I'm here as an educator, as an architect, but these days I'm running with something very, very heavy on my heart. The skills mismatch. When you train people, architecture is a very hard course, very hard, and breaks down people. And then when you finish, and for some reason you can't find work. So we, the educators, must go back to the kitchen and think of a way to make sure that when people finish, they can get jobs. So Maurice, for me, that's what is on my heartbeat as an architect and educator. If we don't do that, yeah, Kenya has just showed us the model.
Well, the Kenyans in the room must be really excited that you raised that. And I see most of them are young also, the ones who are here. So they represent the ones we have been seeing. All right, Audrey.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My apologies for being late.
No, you were just caught up, don't worry.
I want first just to thank Enabel and other partners for putting together these 2 days. They used to call Kampala workshop heaven. There's workshops all the time, all over the place. I've got to tell you, in all my years, I have never been to a more significant conference than this.
Yes.
I would ask you not to just rush through the program for the sake of it. In order for this conference to have the impact it needs to have, because I've waited for such a conference for a long time. I traveled all the way to London for a similar conference. I'd have saved a lot of money if I knew about this one. But last November I was in London for a similar conference called Liberated School Spaces. And it was all about accessibility and how we take so much for granted in terms of how schools are designed and how we can design for inclusion. We can design for well-being. And so I would like to thank the organizers for this conference and hope that we will not only listen, but we will take away what we have learned and be able to implement. This saying that I'm going to tell you in a minute was attributed to Socrates. I don't know if he really said it, because who was there? So it says, the secret of change is to focus all your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And we're at a crux in terms of development and moving forward as a people group, in terms of recognizing that something needs to change, but it may be very expensive to do so. Education is expensive. So what we have to think about throughout the remaining day of this conference following these sessions is how do we make the new? How do we make the new accessible? How do we make it affordable? So we've already shared quite a few ideas. We've looked at some innovations. We've talked about how education is changing. Now we've got to land the plane, as a friend of mine in the audience somewhere, Larissa, who once said, says you've got to land the plane, which means you come to these conferences and you get all these wonderful ideas, but at the end of the day, if it's still circulating somewhere in the air, that's not enough. You've got to be able to land it. You've got to make it a series of actions that you have costed in terms of manpower and pricing and everything else, and then you're able to do. Because there is no pause button on children. You might be 9 today, but you're 10 tomorrow, and you're never 9 again. So we haven't got time to be pontificating. We need practical actions that we can implement, even if it's minuscule. Those tiny changes add together to get us to a critical point of tipping to the place we need to be. So don't be too concerned if what you can do is small.
Excellent, Audrey. And that's, maybe Audrey, I'll start with you because we are now, literally we are now landing the plane. So let's begin there, and I'll start with you. Let's see how to land this plane. And so there is a question here, and it speaks to what you're talking about. And so we need to be extremely practical. So what are the 3 priority principles you take away from, say, for example, the morning session today? Or from today, let me expand it to the sessions all the way up to this afternoon, to integrate into your school design, considering cost efficiency.
The main takeaway?
Yeah, the 3. What would be the 3? Yeah. Practical.
It's incredibly important for educators to work very closely with architects and engineers, because each of us holds unique information that is necessary to make schools work well. 2, we have a fantastic resource right here in this room, lots of expertise. I'm still trying to figure out how to tap into half of it, but over the next day or so, we'll be talking a lot, I'm sure. Getting in touch after that. The 3rd one, let me think. Some solutions come from unusual spaces. There's a young man in the audience, I hope he's in the audience, Arnold. Arnold's created CPAC. Now, I met Arnold in our kitchen. He had come to a party my daughter was holding on the pretext that he was going to enjoy himself, but he really wanted to talk about CPAC. and there he is. So CPAC uses bamboo. It has it's low impact in terms of its carbon footprint, and it's a solution, or part of a solution. It may not even be a long-term solution, but remember, what I said is that we need to start, because there's no pause button. There's no child that's going to wait 20 years for us to get it right. So he has one solution, which is a small bamboo seed. There's some, I asked him to bring one today.
Yeah, they're outside, just outside the seed, yeah.
So do have a look at them. So we need to talk to each other more, because within this room are probably another 10, 15 such innovations that we may not yet know about. And I don't expect to find you all in my kitchen. So I'm here now.
Excellent. Same question, Dr. Semokere. The 3 practical solutions.
I come here with a very heavy heart.
Yes.
Like saying, oh, are these also Ugandans? Yesterday I was about 300 kilometers from Kampala, in a place called Uganda, in a school called Rabating, by the North Ankole Diocese, to do some assessment for a certain office which wants to give help. And when I hear us here speak, I highly recommend that the trip is meant to the hard to reach, hard to stay, and hard to leave. Then we can discuss. Over there, before I talk for a toilet for people with disability, I need a classroom, a bare classroom with timber logs, because I have 900 young people who were sitting on the floor in a tree, and they need a classroom. One of the images I saw here was showing a people with disability toilet, and it had a placard, a signage, neatly made out of perspex or sand. That thing can easily cost you some 100,000 shillings. Now, out there, the load on the Ministry of Education is unspeakable. I highly recommend any architect who's doing great in design for education, guys, let's go down there. Let's go and feel it and get it. You know, I'm sitting here, but I'm still remembering what I saw. The bishop is trying, but it's just too much. I saw the footage of, I saw live kids in their barefoot and carrying half a book that was used by a brother, and they're writing between the lines where the brother left some space. So these are oceans apart. Huh? So I'm speaking, I know that the ministry knows much more, and they can't say it all here, but this country is in dire need. And before we go to transverse and talk about many things, the basic minimums are just even not there. I went to the dormitory. Anyway.
All right. Audrey has to add something. She's remembered. A practical example. Yes. I see he tickled you. He tickled you when he spoke about the students under the tree. I saw that.
Yeah, you know, one of the ironies is that in our break hour on outdoor learning, we were saying to each other, but some people are trying to go indoors. You know, the people that are under a tree don't want to be there. Now, my husband went to school in Yumbe, walking miles in his little short trousers, no shoes. And I went to school in Sheffield, which is in England. It was a very good school. His mathematics is better than mine. Tell me why.
That's a good question. Dr. Kedres, do you want to answer? Dr. Kedres went to the same school, almost something similar. But Emmanuel, feel free. Yeah. The three practical, solutions or principles from our conversation this morning that we're able to kickstart with in our communities, in our schools, or in our areas like in Rwanda, for example, that you picked from the conversations today. Before I ask Kedres to answer, Audrey. Yes.
Thank you. When talking about the conducive school environment, I thought we should have talked about also the school feeding programs, because students should actually take lunch at school. In Rwanda, we have introduced a policy in which we have expanded and scaled the school feeding program at all levels of education, and we are seeing improvements in school attendance. It has also reduced the dropout of students to schools. Means that one of the most components regarding the design of school should also consider the provision of kitchens and dining halls, and also to improve the well-being of the students or kids at school. So I think we should also have talked about it in order to have learner to reduce the stunting of our kids. We should also have talked about the school feeding in our schools. I don't know if from here in Uganda, the policies.
Yes.
There, but in Rwanda, all learners take lunch at school at all levels of education.
All right. Dr. Kedres will speak to that because she's been in the ministry before. But Professor Peter spoke about, I think, was giving us solutions to even in design for the school kitchens. I think you spoke to that. There were some designs you shared. I agree. Do we have anywhere in our schedule for the next 2 days? And I discovered feeding wasn't part of the positions we're having. Totally agree. The Kenyans here know about Maziwa ya Moi. What was it called? The Kenyan team that is here, the milk that was being served in school. We may have Gen Z here that don't know that there was a milk program in the Kenyan schools to provide milk to all school-going children, and that milk had a name. Okay, I'll talk to someone and remember. Kedres, do you want to speak to Audrey's question? And then speak to the feeding program and why it's very critical that we should also be looking at that within this conversation.
That was again the
us. So he doesn't only know mathematics, but he also knows a lot of medicine and knows how to give all of us specs and everything. So yes, I just mentioned it very quickly in the morning that every learner can achieve his maximum potential and proceed and be the adult God created him to be, as long as he's taught in a conducive learning environment. And this is both at home, which includes the community, also at school. And so one of the exciting things about this conference is what Professor said, that his grandfather talked about lighting a fire. When you teach, lighting a fire. I think that is a fundamental statement. And to me, that's part of my takeaways. That these little children, whoever they are, whichever socio-economic background they come from, whichever level society gives them, whether it gives them extra brilliant or gives them special needs education, those ones don't make sense. As long as each of these children are able to learn in a conducive learning environment, where he or she is recognized as an individual and is held by the hand and walked with, they will be useful citizens to these countries and to beyond. So the second thing really is that I felt sad that departments of primary and secondary for Uganda including the flag were not here. I know that the construction unit was here, but it's a technical unit. Now we needed people also from the real pedagogical school systems. I don't know whether it's very late to have the meeting tomorrow so that as we close, they're able to pick a glimpse, because we need this to be picked, this fire, this excitement, this envisioning needs to be picked by a wider group of people. I don't remember who talked about meetings, school inspectors somewhere in the local governments, but the more we get to where work is done and the people who do it there, the more we can get the actual actionable areas and have them run with. And finally, to really say that my experience in East Africa, and I had a chance to move through at least the 5 northern states. We have had a few more, but I had a chance to move several times because I used to be the focal point officer for the Ministry of Education for quite a long time in the East African community. I know that children in East Africa are just excited about learning. They just want to learn. Dr. Seroge told me that picture class is going about, and there were those sweet little people sitting, and they were very anxious to listen to their teacher. So now that we have an audience that wants to learn, let us make every effort to see how we can provide wisdom, an environment where learning can be effectively done.
All right, Matthias, you want to start with the 3, or I ask you? I have a specific question for you, but feel free. Yeah.
As you want.
All right, so there is a question of what are you proud of in 5 years? What has really changed since the first workshop?
What I'm proud of?
Yes. In 5 years, what has really changed since the first workshop? In the last 5 years?
Well, what I'm really proud of is, look here, 150 more people that are together 5 years after, and lots of them are the ones that were 5 years ago at the first workshop.
And they are still here.
And that means actually that there is a COP that came up, that is a community of practitioners around climate responsive design and now focusing on schools. And in Rwanda some time ago on community-based process or on bamboo construction. And then we are still meeting with additional, and we are expanding, and today we are 150 here in Kampala. That I'm really proud. That is really nice. And not me, but Frank and the other of the units,
yes.
Infrastructure unit. I think that we are all proud of what we have been doing.
And so there's physical and those online, so clearly there's a lot of mileage thus far. But quickly, answering, what Audrey was speaking to, the practical solutions we should be taking away from this meeting.
But there is not a solution, and there is not a solution that can be used everywhere. Then what I would keep as framework is starting from the place. And when I say place, is the community that is living there, and it's the nature that is around, and the ecosystem that is on this place, and then understanding how this place can evolve with the infrastructure that will be put and the community that will use it. Then in this place you have materials, and we'll speak about it tomorrow, but I anticipate that these materials are key. This morning my colleague here was saying that when she was going to school and the roof done with iron sheet was something that she still remembers and motivating her. Then what is this motivation is also the image of the evolution that you as a young you design this something else than iron sheets. We have perhaps some other better things, but still there are still wood elements that are there. And then what I pick up also is the inclusivity. So the school is for everyone, and we have to allow everyone to access it, interested, to be hidden by this fire that Grandfather Clegg was speaking about.
Grandfather Clegg, I like that. All right, Dr. Kenneth Samogere, there's a question here for you. What is the one change to the architecture curriculum you wish would be made? And your president is here, so the mic is there, don't worry. Dr. Kenneth.
I teach 5 years construction management, I teach 5 years professional practice. One change that we need to put in our curriculum is attitude change, the soft skills. I employ architects, and very few know about the long haul. Money doesn't come like chap chap, no, it's not done often. It takes time to make good money. And for you to be a good architect, you need to lie low, learn. When time comes and you come up, you can stop it. That's what I did, and I'm enjoying myself.
All right. And very quickly, Audrey, maybe I'll start with you. Let's talk innovation, since you were speaking to, I think Arnold then. And that was clearly an innovative space with Babu. Let me ask something about sustainable design that can be encouraged and supported among architects, builders, and educators in East Africa. Is there a specific area you believe, the architects should be leading in this conversation, and we shouldn't be relying on the developer or, the ministries to dictate the future, that there is a lot of innovation around our spaces, and architects maybe and engineers should be guiding us?
Yes, I think what I've seen of buildings generally in Uganda is that they're very heavy. We build heavy buildings as though we're in a hurricane zone. My family are Jamaican. That's a hurricane zone. There's one there right now. So we use a lot of concrete. And one of the things that I didn't know, I can't remember if it was who said it this morning. Somebody said this morning about how concrete increases emissions. We need to reduce the amount of concrete that we use. So in architecture school, one of the things I've been trying to get, I'm involved in two startups at the minute, and I've been trying to get the engineers to do spot foundations. I've seen a plan outside about a prefab building, and it looks like the sort of thing, but it needs to be more widespread. If it's great that local works are doing that, and maybe another one or two companies, but if it starts from architecture school, and the aim is let's see how to make more efficient buildings, less heavy, then the students come out already thinking that, I think that would really help. because then as the client may not know to think about that, you know, they think that the parents are going to demand a heavy building, you know, it's got to look real. But if the students come out and they're saying, well, actually, there's a way of doing this, and it's a stable building, and it's durable, and it has less impact on the environment.
And it's cost efficient.
Yeah, then I think it's much easier.
All right. Quick question in the room. I mean, it's us asking all the questions. I know the questions we are reading online are also your questions. I'm happy to take a question in the room. Yes, I'll go there. And I will ask about the broader role of the community, and maybe that's where you come in, Semogere, but I'll come to that issue on the community and how we can listen to the community or work with the community in our school design program. Question?
Thank you, Felix, architect. Audrey, I enjoyed listening to your presentation, which got cut short a little bit. What would you say can school designers learn from educators?
Good question.
Very good question. Depends which educator you're talking to. Most educators understand how children learn. And we adapt to whichever space we're given, but it would be so much better if the building was purpose designed for how children learn and think and the things that they need. So one of the examples we were given again this morning was about, I mentioned this twice now, I think, but this is the third time, the mango grove in the school in Ginger, Amazima school in Ginger, and they paved underneath the mango trees, and then the students started using the area a lot. And what happens is that sometimes we end up with spaces that are designed to look great, but they don't take into account how children and teachers think and operate. So that I think is what needs to happen. The school that I'm doing a conversion in Rosita, what I did was I invited a friend over with 3 different age children, and I just let them free to see what they were going to do. Mostly because I wanted to see where the hazards were, you know, any sort of, and sure enough they climbed to all the hazardous places. But it's that sort of thing. We need to just think, how do children learn? And you mustn't eliminate all risk. There has to be a measure of risk. The whole of life is a risk. And children learn about their boundaries by being exposed to risk. So when you end up with these very sanitized environments, I'm not saying this is one, but when you end up with very sanitized environments that are very controlled, we eliminate a part of childhood that is very important.
All right, and Semogere, let's look at the community. I mean, similar question, and I wanted to ask, is how much conversation is happening between, you know, our ministries and of course developers and the community to be able to provide a solution that they actually need. Let's give an example of Uganda, where you are. What's the role of the community in trying to transform that school into what they actually want? Or are we waiting for, you know, Uganda we have, Mukama Tuyambe, what is the word? Government Tuyambe. Tusaba government Tuyambe. Aha. Or are we waiting? The Kenyans have Serikali Tunaomba. I am very sure that's the word they like. Serikali Tunaomba, yes. Is that what they're waiting for, or they should be community involvement in this conversation?
It's very important to appreciate that these people know what they want. The assumption that we come from Kampala and we think that we know what they want, like where I was yesterday, they know what they want. And they have done baby steps. They are just overwhelmed, if I can use that word. The issues that are confronting them, you can't imagine. You know? So the idea of consulting community is very important. Particularly, and I think the minister has tried to consult the community because we have what they call PTAs, we have the board of directors. Yesterday the board of director guy had some requests he made to us, and then I told them to quantify and say, if we did this for you, how much would it cost and what impact would it have on the learner? I give you a small example. When we do dining rooms, in schools in Kampala. Yesterday I observed, I thought I didn't take a photograph. The lunch break. Wow, interesting. Guys just sit around their golu. We were talking at Remain yesterday at dinner. So one of them carried it, and so they sit around, and each one begins to pick a piece. You can imagine that connection. Whereas ours have boxes, call them lunch boxes. These guys just sit somewhere and have their lunch. Another guy had a mango. I think it was about 3, I remember, and he was mashing it as he walked. So the lunches are not the same, by the way. Let's agree on that. The lunches that we have down there are not the same. And so are the kitchens. Everybody comes with his thing, and it works. So the idea of consulting, so a dining room for that school may not be the typical what we are sitting in here, maybe just some nooks away, and that's how they live. They came with it, they walked together the 4 kilometers to school, and they got to go back together. So I think consulting community is very important to understand. Guys, if I was there yesterday and I kept some days there, my mind as an architect was going to change radically.
All right, and I'll come to Engineer Emmanuel Senju, but let me come to Prof. Yes, Dr. Kedres.
Prof. Just said, both these 2 times have tickled me regarding the action steps that my sister raised. Would you now, as a trainer in the School of Architecture, think of your students right from the beginning, getting involved in community activities at school, to go visit a school, wherever it is, whether it's their home where they come from during the school, the university break, or during the actual time they are there, to look at a school and kind of design something as part of coursework, to design something. How would this school be a good school? How would it, so that they start now getting the kind of feel that you are getting. One of the challenges that proprietors of schools face as the different bodies, stamp it on them, they have to have approved plans and they have to have what. It's so expensive to get those plans made. I'm thinking that if as many architects we are able to now start getting involved with schools and looking at the plight of these children, maybe they will start thinking of pro bonos. Maybe they will start thinking of something. So that's for you, the trainer. I'm sure there are others. I know there are some who greeted me, who told me they are at the School of Architecture. So would you now start thinking of, the school where my cousin goes, let me go there and see. What kind of design would suit it for it to be the school that he too will come out and study the course that I'm studying?
I like that idea. And we can start with the schools the senior architects went to, because those are really model schools in the village. That raised the very fantastic Dr. Samogere. If we went to his primary school, and what sort of pro bono services can he offer them for their new dining facility, since we were talking about dining?
Or just the setup of this school, because all schools have space, they have plans for them, but now guiding them to know how they can now utilize this school to be an available environment for children to learn. I think to me that would be very, very helpful from this conference. But just add something, Audrey, during COVID, of course we were locked down. And I live in a community with a lot of people who are really of very low social income. So we are all there, but the children are there, and there are many. I was amazed at how innovative our children are. And I was wondering what we do to them in our school that destroys their innovation. After a few days at home, they could stay inside the home, they just couldn't. So they started coming out in small groups and found out how they could continue their play. So I think 2 of them must have found hangers. They coiled them up and made some little trucks. So they would be pushing, the trucks, along the footpath. Others got ropes and got a sack and made swings. So you just find them swinging each other, very, very happy and laughing.
And these were little kids of 4, 5, 6. So how do we bring that into school to make them espouse and use their innovations?
All right. Dr. Engineer Sejumba, there are so many doctors here, I have to be careful because I'm a professor, so I always making mistakes. Engineer Sejumba, I was, tickled, when Audrey speaks about measurable outcomes. If we're able to, looking at from the conversation we've had through the day, and we're talking about sustainable school designs, do we have measurable outcomes from schools that have implemented these designs? Because clearly there's things we've done very right, and we have, her husband is one of the best things that happened in this country, so clearly there's things we've done very right. But do we have measurable outcomes from, for example, in Rwanda, where you have model schools that have sustainable school designs? And do you want to speak to that so that we're able to say, if we can do the same as that, there's clear outcomes from being able to have the perfect structures for our schools?
Thank you once again. I have just had the major outcomes even from the area in which the conference was held. The School of Environment, the Kampala International School of Uganda, is one of the first outcome regarding the school design, because it can teach someone how schools can be regarding the design. I'm very happy that this conference we have students and final year architects who are also our future architects. I think they also have learned many things here regarding the school design, from the topic one we have seen, the challenges we have today, how should our school must be. Each of the topic we have discussed just as we had opportunity to learn more, and we have just an impact during our daily activities and some improvements in our school design, because normally, as we discussed, most of the schools we design are constructed using concrete, yet we discussed that the conventional concrete is not good due to emission of gas like the carbonic dioxide. So we need to think of innovative construction materials which is green in terms of being environmental friendly. Our thinking before, we think that using the normal concrete is just the only construction materials. But as we continue to discuss regarding the sustainable school design approach, we also have innovative ideas regarding how we can just also search for innovative construction materials that are environmental friendly, and we can in the future shift from the concrete to those materials. So the outcomes are so many we get from this conference.
All right, I have 5 minutes between all of you, and so, Audrey, this question's for you, but, Dr. Kedres, you can speak to this. Matthias, again, if you can, just add a word, so we'll begin. You can give the mic to Matthias, maybe let's start there. Matthias, the question is, apart from educating today's engineers on universal design and accessibility, taking students with disabilities into consideration, what would be the other strategic actions to promote accessibility in Africa?
To follow the technical guidelines that are in each ministry, to really follow them would be already a very good point. Then on the outcome, just I wanted to go back. 5 years ago with the infrastructure team Enabel here in Uganda, we have done a survey on the built construction, monitoring temperature, humidity, acoustic, and comfort with interviews to the students. We have like 500 pages of document that are somewhere, and that could be a good outcome to show what are the actually effect of a good design compared to a basic design. And about accessibility, everything is there. What is missing is the will, because everything is really there. We have just had a nice presentation from government of Uganda on the technical guidelines and all the different steps, but everything is there. We just have to apply.
Dr. Keres, I mean, having been in the ministry, there's already considerations made for students with disability, but in terms of our sustainable school designs, is there something that we need to, because he says it's very clear in the guidelines, Ministry of Education guidelines, we just need to do the right thing. But how do we support developers in implementing that? You wanted, no, it's Dr. Keres, don't worry. You already said, let's just do the right thing as the guidelines say, but Doctor has been in the thick of things before.
I think to the Ugandans and the Uganda team, our greatest challenge is implementation. We have so many things on paper, so many policies having taken lots of money to develop, but the implementation. So that's why we're thinking that the departments in charge need to be part of this conversation. I know the PS won't make it, but maybe organizing a homemade kind of briefing to the permanent secretary and the senior management team, and kind of bring them on board on these issues, so that the enforcement of some of what is already existing in the guidelines can actually be actualized. I know that even for the existing schools, the question that was asked this morning, in the 90s, all schools were asked, because fortunately we didn't have the skyscrapers, they were asked to create a ramp on those old buildings, and on most of them now, they do have ramps, and people with special needs can access. But I think we need it to be a whole government effort, a whole government understanding. And that's what I picked from Rwanda 2 months ago. I visited here, I didn't see yourself. But that's what I picked in their 2021-2050 vision. First objective is the human capacity development with a focus on education. So when we get the whole government, then what we're talking about concerning funding and concerning whatever will definitely come in place.
All right, Audrey, and that's where I wanted you to come in. How is it done elsewhere? Because we're not just talking about students with disability, we are talking about students with special needs. How do you incorporate this in the school designs to be able to appreciate that there will be a space for inclusion, especially for persons with disabilities?
Thank you. The issue I'm seeing from what you're saying, Dr. Kedris, is that the policies are there, the intention is stated, but we have disjointed systems. And so if we are to have a widespread approach, yes, it has to be written down, but there has to be a decision to implement, and a decision to implement regardless of who's in power. So what happens in Britain is that every time there's a change of government, the new government throws out what the last government did. And I don't know how many of you have watched an old movie called Back to the Future, where somebody goes in a DeLorean and ends up back in 1955 or something. That's what it's like in education. So I sat in a conference and I turned to the person next to me and said, "Are you an educator?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, don't you remember learning this in the 1980s? And we did this in the 1980s. And she said, yes. And I said, I feel like Marty from Back to the Future. I've ended up in 1972 somehow. And that's what happens. If you don't try, if you don't make, if you don't become intentional about making sure that educational knowledge is retained and passed from administration to administration, you end up with what happens in America with Common Core. It's not perfect anywhere. Education is always a little bit of a roller coaster. I think the places that have gotten it right are countries like Singapore, where they are very intentional about developing expertise and making sure that it's retained. It's almost like organizational knowledge, so it's not lost. You don't end up feeling like you've gone back to the future every few years.
All right, I have to close this conversation. Can we appreciate our panel, ladies and gentlemen? All right, in 30 seconds. Yes.
The ramp I saw yesterday at that school was about 45 degrees. Damn. And then on the veranda, when they land on the veranda, at some point it goes straight and then it ramps down and ramps up and goes back again. Supervision. I want to commend the guy CMU here, when I had Douglas, please stand up for the commission. Douglas here is the one who runs our CMU. That guy there. He has many schools. So when they go for supervision, so everything we can do on paper looks very beautiful. I went to a PW toilet where the ramp is there, but to go there you go in steps.